For those with good taste.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's your boys from For Those With Good Taste. I'm Matt. He's Lenny.
What is up?
And we are coming to you live. Well, kind of live, not really live, but we are in Good Taste Studios.
We're here.
We're freaking here, baby.
We're at least here in the flesh.
And we're here.
I'm alive.
You're alive. I'm alive. We're all alive, dude. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
No? All right, no, I don't have it.
Nope.
But you know what did have it this weekend, Len?
Was it Manchester City?
Well, no, don't bring them up because we lost. We're going to win the title this year, but we lost it to a team that we shouldn't have lost to.
I didn't even know I was making
Jesus,
fun of them.
dude. I wanted to start it off on a high note.
Matt's Manchester Minute. Welcome.
No, we're shutting down the minute. It's 2 seconds. We lost. We're over it.
Okay, till next week.
See us in the Champions League Wednesday. Manchester City versus Borussia Dortmund. We're out here.
Are you an Arsenal fan? Get the fuck out of here.
Well, you know what, dude? You know who is a fan that I can think he can kick rocks?
Who?
Fucking Sheamus, dude.
Sheamus. Huh?
Sheamus. Not only did he beat my buddy the Riddle, but he's also a Liverpool fan.
It's Matt Riddle. The Riddle?
I know he's the Riddle, but
okay.
You know, come on, bro. But he beat Matt Riddle. He's a Liverpool fan. We'll jump more into that later, but I think he's a dick.
I'm a Liverpool fan.
Not really. But we are coming to you after one of the hottest weekends in what would be considered history, Len? In some shape or form. I speak in hyperbole.
In recent history. Is that a better way to put it? In recent history.
I think it was a return to some type of normalcy. Would you say that?
It felt good for me as a person who had to sit through a year of awkward wrestling, some with no fan noise, and then the rest with really bad fake like fan noise. Yeah,
like push noise. Yeah. And we're talking about WrestleMania 37, which this year did it a little bit differently. They broke it down into night 1 and night 2 events. How did you feel about that?
Second year in a row they've done that one.
They did that last year?
They did that last year, yes, sir. So they did it again this year. I think everybody, this is one thing coming out of the event, has been unanimous. Everybody feels the same way. It's better to do it over 2 nights.
Just not as long, right?
Yeah, it's wrestling.
I do
for
remember
like when I would have people over, right, to watch WrestleMania, right, or watch wrestling in general for that matter. It used to suck because like in between all the good stuff, they'd put a bunch of bad matches, and there'd be like 14 fucking matches. So nobody wants to watch wrestling at 1 a.m. when they don't watch wrestling at any other time of the year, right?
Trust me, yeah.
If you put it in between the hours of 8 and 11, I think you're going to get people to watch it. I feel the same way about MMA for that.
Those are happy hours, dude.
Like,
yeah.
We always talk about it. It's tough on the East Coast to be an MMA fan because a main event you're not catching until 1 a.m.
Bro, the walkouts are at like 12 o'clock.
Yeah,
it's just like the worst.
Yeah, so they're actually getting a little better. I feel like walkouts at 12, and we're getting the fights at like 12:15, 12:20, but that still feels like super late.
It's still
Some
late,
nights
man.
It's
almost disrespectful because if you think about it, obviously in Vegas and California, you know, back in the day, you'd go catch a fight at like 6 p.m. You'd catch the main event by 9. You're out.
Yeah,
you got the rest of the night to enjoy yourself. We're out here killing ourselves.
Yeah, it's definitely catered to the whole of the side of the country for us here, which I guess they're the ones gambling, so I understand that. To an extent.
I'm gambling with my life, missing out on sleep, dude.
Yeah, so it just makes it a lot easier. I guess in the future when like parties and stuff maybe become a little bit more of a thing, having gatherings at your house are more of a commonplace. Maybe it gets a little tougher to have people over on both nights, and where it's actually skewed more towards Sunday night is the real, to me at least, event. Like this weekend, I think we can agree. The true main event was, that actually is
so that's tough to say, man.
Both nights were huge. You're right. Both nights had actually huge moments, but the cards as a whole, I think the bigger matches to me were
I think they definitely kept all the creme de la creme, I think, for Sunday night. But Saturday certainly delivered, I think.
They didn't
in
short
a lot of
you
different
if you
facets.
showed up for either night.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't want to. We don't need to go through the whole show, top to bottom or anything. But as a person who doesn't watch year round, who hopped in for the big event this year, what were your takeaways? What were some of your favorites? Like, what were some of your highs, some of your lows?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, not only did I tune in because you basically forced me into it every time it comes on.
Gunpoint. Yeah.
But as a Puerto Rican, you know, we love to tell Puerto Ricans everyone that we're Puerto Rican. Bad Bunny was on the event.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it. If you go back and watch 2020 trivia, you'll learn that we're big Bad Bunny fans.
We are huge on the Bad Bunny train, and I had heard, you know, over the last couple of weeks that he was making a couple of appearances at, you know, on Raw, or I think it might have been SmackDown.
No, Raw.
Was it Raw?
Yeah,
okay.
Raw.
So, you know, he's making a couple of appearances and he's building up to this, you know, amazing kind of climax with The Miz, who I'm also a fan of. So I had a little bit of conflict of interest there. Mm-hmm. But I was hugely impressed by what he was able to do. I think he's really good at kind of not manipulating, but, catering to a crowd. I was actually interested to get your take on how he did.
He's definitely very high up there as far as all-time celebrity guest appearances, especially at WrestleMania. It's very few guys come in and really buy in, I think, that way. Surprisingly enough, I think Floyd Mayweather back in the day did a pretty good job of it.
I mean, he three-pieced and so did
Big Show.
The Big Show.
Yeah. You also had Stephen Amell did a pretty good wrestling match too. In
Rob Gronkowski had one.
He was bad.
Well, he jumped in.
Yeah, he was bad. Recent years, it has gotten better though, and this is just another moment where it's somebody who's a true fan came out and just executed, and it was a great match. I had a lot of fun with it. I had heard a lot in the build-up as a person who does read a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that he was, in fact, taking it really seriously.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Everybody who paid attention was kind of going in with a level of optimism, but he far exceeded anything. Because most times when you have a celebrity involved, what you're going to do is have the wrestler take a bulk of the match, and the celebrity comes in and does a couple high spots, and that's the
It's usually one of those tag team matches where they barely, their partner's always getting their ass kicked and they can't make the tag.
Even, dude, go back and watch, Ronda Rousey's first match, Kurt Angle did a fair amount in that match.
And she kind of had, that quick spurt or highlight.
In this case, Bad Bunny was in that match for about 75% of it, and he pulled off a lot of great moves, dude. I was highly impressed with it. I hope to see him come back one day, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like Pat McAfee and this guy are just are naturals.
Yeah, you could really tell that they're fans of the sport, and one thing that, you're always going to hear when it comes to Bad Bunny is his professionalism. The man, whether it's performances, whether it's his music, he is all about putting in the work. So I was just really, kind of excited to see how he would do, and I thought he did really well.
It was a big success. It was a smart move by the WWE.
Yeah.
What about the other celebrity appearance?
Refresh me. I'm a little hazy.
Logan Paul.
So that's why that one doesn't really stand out to me, because I think KO, there was just that moment where as soon as he grabs KO's hand, you're like, dude, you didn't come in with me. You're not part of this brand. You come from a completely different life. Kevin Owens is looking at his hand like, something bad's going to happen. Well, I thought he played the stunner really well.
Yeah, it was the Austin thing. His stunner, the way Logan took the stunner was funny. He
ragdolled himself.
So I liked the way he sold for it.
It was a good play.
I liked that he sold for it. I have no issue with that. He 100% sold out. It was just a little funny to see the arms go
just completely
back.
limp. Yeah.
And then he didn't
he went full Peter Griffin.
I like to think if you were gonna take that move, you want to just drop to both knees, right? Yeah. I would do probably in my head The Rock,
he almost sprawled out.
Yeah, it was funny. I feel like that's the way you actually get hurt doing the stunner, was the way he did it.
Well, he took it well, but I'm hoping there was some rehearsals there. Maybe he knew how to, because he kind of flipped into it perfectly. When you look into the way
rolled off of it, kind of.
He ragdolled himself, and I think he did it really well. But getting to the real storylines of wrestling, I thought, I was actually really impressed with Bianca Belair's match with Sasha Banks.
It was awesome.
I thought she did really well.
What a moment, right?
Man, and you almost felt like, I'm a fan that doesn't know all the backstories or the what the plots could be.
Yeah.
So it almost felt like they were kind of giving it to you where she could really pull this off, but then Sasha was always going to be able to come back, I think.
Well, I mean, it's just a huge moment in general, and you get this great shot before the match starts of Bianca tearing up.
Yeah.
Not only because it's her own personal biggest moment in her career, but also
it's a big moment in history.
Yeah, two African American females headlining WrestleMania, that's very, very big. And on top of that, this is a person who's never, like I said, been on a stage that is this big. But whenever she's been given the opportunity, we've seen Bianca Belair achieve more than what
rise to the occasion.
Exactly, that's the best way to put it. And again, I think this time she held up her own. I mean, dude, the suicide dive to the outside where she rolls through and then presses her and carries her up the stairs. Come on, dude,
it is incredible. She pulled off such a clean 450 splash.
Yeah. Twice. She ate it on the knees. And that's always one of those things when people are doing spins and are willing to give up their bodies to hit the the thing. And we can talk about giving up your body because Shane McMahon is dead.
Whoa, whoa! Don't spoil my final one, baby.
Yeah, we still have the main event still.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much to enjoy. You asked me things that really stood out to me. It was, the initial opening from Vince McMahon. I don't know if he's had his vocal cords done, whatever it was, but he's old, yeah. He's made sure to keep up the persona, and you really felt his introduction was really impactful. But then you see Shane, like Roman Reigns is in a beautiful suit. You see Shane in his Shane O'Mac gear, and you're like, man, you're gonna get tossed from something. And leave it to Braun Strowman. I've actually just really enjoyed Braun Strowman's personal development. His getting in shape and all that stuff. I thought it was really good.
Fucking ripped, dude.
He looks outstanding. He ripped the cage apart, which was pretty crazy. He pulls Shane back in, and then he tosses Shane from the top of the freaking cage.
Shane kind of tosses himself, Matt. Don't.
Well, I'm playing to the story. Shane's always tossing himself. Shane's like, all right, do I go now? All right, I'm gone.
He launches himself, and that dude, he's old, and that is.
But
he's a psycho. Dude.
You can always count on him taking that
he
spot.
Bounced off the ground.
I for sure thought he landed bad on his back.
I feel like it was Jeff Hardy who said back in like the run where they were like first building up, he did a jump off. No, maybe it was Matt Hardy did a jump off of the cage, and it's what he's always regretted. He did a leg drop, I think, off the top of a cage, and it's fucked him up for the rest of his career. Like one of the things that he's just like, those are bumps that you only do once or twice.
Yeah, you're not willing to take that risk again.
Well, yeah, I wish I didn't waste it there. Yeah. So yeah, that was a psycho bump. The match overall is whatever. I thought they won me over for the most part. Overall, the whole night, the whole 2 nights won me over. I greatly enjoyed them.
Genuinely enjoyed it, man.
Let's talk. We talked about good, and we'll get to the main event because I do want to talk about the triple threat.
Sure.
I want to close on that, but let's talk about the bad, or at least in my opinion, the Fiend.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Fiend. How do you feel?
I'm over it.
That was pretty rough,
brother.
Wasn't it? I did enjoy two things. I enjoyed the entrance. I thought his entrance is always badass, and I thought this one also.
There was a lot of great things that they've done with this character that I've seen. Mm-hmm. His matches are just kind of not there.
This isn't Bray Wyatt's fault,
and I don't think it is. I think
he's great. Man.
They want him to play a maneuver set or a set of moves that just I don't think plays to his skill set.
Well, I don't think they're willing to do the things to make. So he at one point had a lot of control over this character, and it just doesn't feel as though he has this control anymore. And it unfortunately has tainted what it is, and it's too. I don't know, like it. It's too gimmicky. It's too wants to be a cheesy horror movie instead of just being
what he was in the beginning.
Dude, Kane was great, and I don't understand why we can't recapture essentially what you had with Kane.
Shout out to Kane for getting voted into the Hall of Fame as well. Awesome moment.
He was awesome, and he was awesome in both nights doing it too.
Yeah,
the second night, right?
Second night, yeah. The Fiend for me is just I feel like you've got to do something different with Bray as a whole, because I think he's dedicated so much to this. I mean, you started off making it where he couldn't be beaten. Mm-hmm. He's running through guys, and now he loses to Randy Orton, and you're like, okay, yeah, there's a storyline there, but I'm not feeling that sense of invincibility from this guy anymore.
Well, and I got bad news for you, Matt, because the next night on Raw, it's definitely continuing.
And
Alexa Bliss is off on her own now. It's crazy.
I love Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, but this isn't it for her.
But I'm wondering what they're doing with her too. It just doesn't make sense.
I think that she might not. I don't think they wanted her to wrestle as much.
You think they want her to be a personality?
She's had concussion issues, and I think this is a good way to protect her from having to, save her as a wrestler.
Sure.
Because she's definitely a good wrestler, but she's a great personality, and she can carry it on both ends. So let's save her for when we really want to make it worth it for her to come back.
You have to take care of your assets, and I think Alexa Bliss for them is a major asset, right? Mm-hmm. She's got a great personality. She's got a great look. I always have concerns with things like that. If you're in those instances where she's very young, but she's already put her body on the line so many times, you run the risk of even wondering, I think Daniel Bryan went through it with his concussion and his head injuries. Mm-hmm. You're like, at what point is it really worth it?
Yeah. I
so totally it gets interesting for her. A no-no for me, man, and it sucked because it was a good moment, or it was supposed to be a good moment. The NWO coming out.
Because they look so fucking old.
Man, it was tough to see Scott Hall just trucking along. And you look at
he's obviously, because of what he's done alcohol wise, looks the roughest. Because I think Kevin Nash actually
looks good.
Looks pretty good.
It was just a weird moment for me, and I guess it's because
Hogan got booed out of the building both fucking nights.
Yeah, but that was the moment where I'm like, man, is this the time to bring him out? It's probably not.
Yeah, they shouldn't have, clearly. I mean, there's no positive way to spin it, honestly. Like, I don't understand why we're still in business with Hulk Hogan at this point. And it's kind of insulting on top of that to put him up there next to Titus O'Neil when, like, the reason this dude's fucking canceled is for saying racial slurs. And you put him next to a guy who just got inducted into the Hall of Fame as well for all the good things
and
he's
won
done.
Won the award.
The Warrior Award.
Yeah, the Warrior Award.
Which is basically like, hey, you're a great fucking human being. Yep. And we're going to make you stand next to and act like you like this fucking old, selfish racist.
It was a sour moment for me, man. I thought it was a huge miss. You know, given the circumstances of everything that's going on, you got to have a better pulse on on what to present. And it wasn't like he was just part of the moment. No, that was their moment, kind of. You know, I wasn't okay with that. Love the NWO, always going to show love, but too sweet. Didn't like that moment.
This was too bad.
But what else did you feel just kind of missed it?
So I think that's it for bad stuff for me. Let's close out on this because we've gone pretty far along on it, right?
I mean,
the triple threat was the most dramatic, I think, match of all of the ones this weekend. I think it had the highest stakes to it, the most ebbs and flows. The biggest moment may be the Bianca Belair victory. Yeah. But the match for me is, I think that main event.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation of having Edge come back, right? To
his entrance, was really
goosebumps. Yeah. And he had so many moments. I think the spear off the steps of Roman Reigns brought so many good memories back. You know,
I thought that whole part there because you get the power bomb, and I love Reigns right after that. Like, what do you think of me now? You know, and just turns and gets the spear. And I thought I was worried he had hurt himself off the spear because he almost landed on his elbow.
Yeah, really he took that bad. There were some moments also like the powerbomb of Daniel Bryan. I didn't think that was a good spot from him either. It almost looked like he came down on his head.
No, so I actually think it went as well as possible because if you look at the way, basically, it was totally cushioned, and then I think he just kind of like rolled back.
Yeah, it almost seemed like he came down like diagonally straight on his head, and maybe that.
No, I think it was like mostly he landed all on the thing, so he never. I don't think he took anything on a hard surface.
Yeah.
But
great match.
There was moments left and right in this match. It was hot start from the beginning. You got some interference that played in the beginning, and then obviously played really big at the end. Maybe a downside to it could have been a detractor. But
how long do we go on with the Jey Uso thing?
It's gonna. I think it's.
Is it here to stay?
No, it's good because it's elevated him. So I'm not gonna ever. All right. They have trouble elevating people, and this is a guy that's been a career tag team wrestler for well over 10 years now, and is now in a single spot where he won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, thank you, on Friday, and now he played a major part in this, but I think it's just a good thing that he's involved, so I'm not going to say it's a negative. But I don't love that he got involved in the finish. I do prefer my WrestleMania main event to have a little bit more of a definitive finish. It did have, I'll strike that and I'll get back to it because I don't want to skip ahead. What I really, really liked in this match was when we get, first of all, Daniel Bryan stops Roman from tapping out because the story up to this point is Daniel Bryan has weaseled his way into this match and kind of screwed Edge a little bit. Yeah,
you went a little bit on a rant there.
So internally in the match, what they used to tell the story is Roman's about to tap out. And this dude gets in, stops the hand from tapping, also puts his own lock on, so his hands aren't available now to tap out. And he can't verbally submit either because something's in his mouth, literally stopping him, right? And they start headbutting each other to get out, which is incredible. A few minutes later, Edge is about to win again. Spears, I believe, Roman, goes for the pin, and Daniel Bryan pulls the ref up. And the facial expressions from Edge does match, incredible, dude. It tells the whole story. You see the frustration and it builds.
He's taking a few acting classes, huh?
Exactly. And I think there's a movie where he's like on a hijacked airplane that came out like 6 months ago. I shit you not.
He's played one of the bad guys in Vikings, so I've been able to catch him on there as well.
That too. So from there we get basically the end of the match, which includes concertos, which for those of you who don't follow wrestling anymore, it's just. Head strikes from a chair is a no-no in wrestling, especially not in wrestling, but in the majority, it's accepted in all wrestling that you don't do chair shots.
Is it a loophole because he puts the chair between his head and the mat?
I think the reason why they allow it to happen is when you're facing a camera and do it, it looks
way worse than it actually is.
All you're hearing really is the sound of the chair hit the canvas, I assume.
But that's bad for your ears, man.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not a concussion.
Okay. You say that.
But it's still the visual that they're giving, and you don't want, with the concussions being such a hot button thing, they don't go this route. So it adds a real element. I just hope we don't see Daniel Bryan or Edge, for that matter, back for a few weeks to really sell this. But I said it wasn't definitive. It is 100% definitive, because you get the body stacked on, the carcasses stacked on top of each other, and he pins fucking both of them. I don't know how you felt, dude. I love it, because that means that we are going to have I think he's holding the belt for them either till SummerSlam or till next WrestleMania as a dominant heel.
I kind of felt like if they were going to turn him, like if they were going to take it from him, this was going to be the stage, and they came away completely the opposite. He looks like the King Alpha at this point.
He was the only guy who was truly booed on either night. I feel like he was the truest heel on either night.
And played it really well, man.
The great thing is, I think you come away with this, that every single month you're going to have an event that you're ideally going to have somebody that people want to see lose.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what a lot of,
it's the Floyd Mayweather effect.
Triple H made a career off of that, right? We all hated Triple H when we were younger, and to a fault, he used his pull to hold the belt where he shouldn't have. He should have put some guys over. But at the same time, it's not a terrible thing for us to hate the heel champion and want to see the hero come.
You're going to tune in every single week to see how he's going to lose and if he's going to lose.
So, how did you feel about the climax to this?
I enjoyed it, man. I was one of those people that I used to think WrestleMania was too long, and some of the moments didn't really live up or were worth the squeeze, so to speak. This one, day one, day two. Shout out to the Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley fight. I thought they did a great job with that. So many things stood out to me and made me want to tune into Raw, and I got the cock in hand now. So I am for sure going to be tuning in a little bit more than I have, just because I love what they did with some of the storylines.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was a huge win for me.
I fucking will show up every month anyways. So
yeah, I didn't bother asking you how you felt, because I could already tell by your enthusiasm that you genuinely enjoyed it.
Last thing before we get off wrestling here. Earlier in the week, we also had NXT. It was phenomenal. If you haven't gone and seen it yet, I would 100% go and check out Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa. It was probably the match of the entire WrestleMania stretch of weekend events. It might have been number one. If anybody did watch WrestleMania, maybe we could just, if you watched anything during the week, what are your top 3 matches from it? Because for me, that's got to be number one. O'Reilly versus Adam Cole. Adam Cole and the Babies. There you go.
You shouldn't have worn the sweater.
I fucked up.
Yep.
I took a Mecha Okafor. I fucked up. You probably don't get
somebody out there might get just that. Go hot. I know Mecha Okafor.
No, but you don't know the quote.
Oh, whatever, dude.
I'll read a book, Matt.
Can't read. It's not his fault he can't read. No, I didn't catch any NXT, but probably should.
Yeah, well, it's on the cock, and just go back and you jump on the cock. And
cock in hand, dude. Lenny, at this point, I'm so all in on wrestling that I feel it's only right that we start talking more about some wrestling stuff. Yeah. So Ben Askren versus Jake Paul.
Let's get into more pro wrestling. Let's
get into the pro wrestling, as JR would say, because this one here is going to be a slobber knocker. I don't think it is.
No. You're not. Let's not spend an hour on this one. There's not a lot of critical.
What, you don't want to do a sweet intro on Ben Askren, Jake Paul? No, I don't.
For what it's worth, dude, I think they've done a decent job of selling this fight, and I've gone back and forth on how I think it's going to play out, because I do genuinely think Ben Askren has toyed with this dude mentally in the build-up. That whole press conference thing is just a work of art.
I think Jake Paul thought he was going into this with the mental edge, and it's no, man. You're getting in there with, some would call Ben Askren kind of like a psychopath. You're getting in there with a bad guy.
You know what I watched that's maybe it's a little weird I watched this, but I came across in my YouTube rabbit hole I must have been in one day. There was a guy who does behavioral breakdowns,
analysis?
So he watches people's body language,
okay,
and he analyzes it, right? So he did the press conference between them, and it was 8 minutes. It was super interesting though, because it was it's look at Jake Paul, super uncomfortable, flinching, and you could tell when he points out these things, you could see where Ben Askren was getting under his skin, because of specific things he was doing, and the whole entire time it's just Ben Askren in sandals, fucking leaned back in his chair, never moves once except for towards like the very end, as calm as can be.
So unsettling.
Well, it's because like this is a guy. In this moment I was convinced. I actually switched to Askren. I've been back and forth this whole time, right? And in this moment I switched to Askren because I think mental is a big thing.
It's one of the biggest things. That
there's two ways that basically this fight goes, right?
Yeah.
And also another really good breakdown I saw was GSP talking to Rogan about it.
Yeah.
Was also good. Because it's kind of a similar idea where it's like if Ben Askren, his goal is clearly get this guy so fucking mad at me that this dude comes out in the first 2 rounds and just swings on me, and maybe I get knocked down, maybe I get a little beat up, but I grind through it. Yeah. And then my veteran toughness
savvy
can show up, and in rounds 4, 5, and 6, my stuff that's slow and kind of sloppy accumulates, Matt, because we know that style, right? We've seen guys play that.
Yeah, we've seen it's kind of like the modern day rope-a-dope. Like you're not really taking a bunch of damage, but you are taking shots, you're taking pressure. And then you get this guy into what we would consider the deep waters, where they have to breathe heavier. They've got to do a lot more to move, and they're able to catch these guys flat-footed.
In boxing, Matt, though, is 3 rounds in a more amateur setting of boxing, clearly.
Sure.
In one sense, I think in an energy we're speaking specifically right now. I'm asking you for energy conservation, right?
Sure.
In boxing, is 3 rounds going to be enough to drag a guy into being gassed out? A guy who's taking his training seriously and has had actual boxing matches, whether it be against real competition or not, in the past couple of years.
I think, as in any combat sport, we talk a lot of MMA here, and when we do get to talk about boxing, a lot of it is, it being a 10-round or a 12-round fight, there being a lot of time for guys to kind of get into their rhythm. This is an 8-round fight where amateur boxers or people who don't spend a lot of, you can't say Ben Askren's an amateur by any means because he's a professional fighter, but his boxing skills,
boxing's amateur.
Very amateur.
Yeah.
When you take those two things into effect, 3 rounds really depends on how you're able to engage your opponent. So if you don't have a game plan that seems threatening, where you're able to maybe feint and you're getting a lot of movement from the guy, if you're taking a lot of damage, how much damage, like if it really depends on Jake's output, like what's his punch volume going to look like? And
that's why it's so reliant on him getting him upset, right?
Yeah.
Because he can't, if Jake's calculated in those first couple rounds and he's able to just come in with an actual boxing this is where, like, dude, if we see some like drastic evolution, because despite how good his boxing did look and the punches, I think he throws nice punches, right?
He's got good
form. We can agree with that.
Sure.
But his actual fighting style is sloppy.
Yeah.
He still looks like he's just
doesn't protect his chin by any means.
Just swings, right? Just comes out and he's still kind of in a
swinging from the
ass,
as they would say.
So if he still maintains that type of strategy, then Ben Askren's thought process here is right. And if I continue to needle and jab at this little kid that he basically calls him the whole time, and he kind of is acting like it.
Yeah, at this point,
it could definitely work. Now, the other side of this is if this dude has come in and he's zen and he's calm and he's actually continues to grow the way that we've seen fight over fight, because he has shown improvements throughout this.
He has shown development, but the one thing that I've always kind of stuck to when you talk about mental edge, the first video that we get of these guys facing off, Jake puts his fist to Ben, and Ben makes him flinch. And not only is he making him flinch, Jake almost does this like little brother like slap to the gut.
Well, that was a bad moment for him. Yeah.
To me, that doesn't show.
The behavioral therapist dude broke that down.
Did he break that down?
Because he showed how like immediately after he hits him in the stomach, you see Jake realizes he just gave him too much.
Didn't he? Yeah, and Ben didn't even flinch.
Well, he realized like, oh, I just lost that one. And that's why he immediately tries to get it back. Yep. And he's like, come back here, let's do it again. Because like the way he approached it was just he got mentally duped, right?
And that already shows that you're on edge. Mm-hmm. Like you're already kind of tipping your hat. So at the end of it, we don't want to spend too much time on it.
Well, so I'm getting the vibe, like just from your facial expressions. Are you pulling for? Are you thinking? I mean, I think we're both pulling for Ben Askren, but is that who you think's going to win?
You said there's 2 ways that this fight's going to go. It's going to go Jake Paul knockout
early,
or
first 2 rounds.
or Ben Askren grinds it out to an 8 round.
It's going to be first 2 to 3 rounds that Paul comes out here. I mean, it's going to be nuts. If we end up seeing eight rounds of him just beat the shit out of Ben Askren like that, that'll be nuts.
Fucking A. But who'd have thunk it?
I have to imagine he gets it done in 3, or Askren drags him in and then maybe knocks him down in the 8th. Could you see this outcome, Matt? Ben Askren gets knocked down a couple times in the first rounds, right? Mm-hmm. But fights through it. Creates a situation where even if he wins the last 4 to 5 rounds, it's still very up in the air, and we get like a draw out of this.
Oh, I can't tell you how much I would hate that, but like, it's certainly a possibility. I mean, Jake's a big boy. He could put Ben on his ass.
He came in about 190 though in his fights. That's where he's been coming in.
I say big boy in the sense that when he throws, he's giving you everything.
It's hard,
right? Yeah. He's got heavy hands, and if Ben gets hit, one of the upsides to Ben, this being a boxing fight, is that if Ben feels like he's a little bit out of it, you take a knee. Mm-hmm. You can drop to a knee, take your 10 seconds,
collect yourself,
and that's it looks bad on the scorecard, but it's a veteran move if you needed to do it. This gives him, I think, an opportunity to maybe gauge Ben a little bit in those early rounds. If he does take a knockdown or two, maybe he's able to put pressure on him in the later rounds. So it could go either way.
Official predictions for this Saturday's event on Triller. There's your promo.
Yeah, we're not giving you a time. I take Askren an 8.
Okay. I hate doing this. I hate putting because I'm so up in the air on it. It's one of those heart and head. So I'm gonna go Jake Paul.
Okay, I'm glad you did that.
I'm afraid that
one of us had to.
Ben Askren is a little too hittable.
Sure.
I've used the comment that like this dude's fought Robbie Lawler. And like, so I know he can fight a striker, but it's like the reality is he basically got knocked the fuck out by Robbie Lawler, but I guess he got spiked on his head a little bit, right?
Yeah, there was a couple things that led to him getting dropped.
This dude has been hit hard, but it's like when you don't have your wrestling to fall back on, what do you really have? When I say it can go one of two ways, it's either if it could be an exciting fight with a knockout, or it could be a really fucking boring fight where Ben Askren's just grabbing up the arms and gutting his way through it to make his money. I hope that
don't be surprised how much dirty boxing you see.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Ben goes that route, and who knows what ref we get that's going to allow that to go on, or if they're going to break it up right away. Who knows? But I'm glad we ended up on opposite sides. I'm okay with being wrong about Ben. Mm-hmm. I don't want to pick Jake.
Yeah, I get it, man. I don't want to
and for me, that just bothers me. So I mean, I feel like it's only right that we go from this little WWE-esque shenanigan show, as we can call it,
to another WWE promo in the making.
Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, this
turned into a shit show.
This is the rematch that I think everybody wanted for the last fight, right?
Yeah, I mean, we knew coming off the last fight that maybe that this was the red panty night that Dustin would probably fall for, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And coming out of it, we now have a date, but now we've also got some shenanigans of their own going on.
For sure.
What do you think about the accusations of Dustin saying that Conor didn't pay up on the donation money?
It's definitely a situation where both guys can be right. I guess I'm really worried to
make comments.
Well, just to sound biased, because I think I am probably a little biased, but I can understand both points of view to an extent, because it's like, hey, Conor, it's very easy to say, hey, I'm going to give you $500,000, and I don't think he sweats $500,000. Truly, I think he's going to give the money, but I also do think that the PR campaign that he treated last fight like, was that just a part of his PR? Like that's what it is, right? Yeah. It's like, I think he's going to give the $500,000. I think he was the whole time, but I think it was a PR move.
Sure.
And now I think on the flip side, Dustin Poirier, who's not getting the money, is probably thinking the same thing that I'd be thinking, right? That it is a PR play, and that you used that as a way to make yourself look better in all of this, but you need to fucking pay up. And so
put your money where your mouth is.
Now he's putting pressure on it. But I also think that I don't love the idea on the flip side to be like, $500,000 is a lot of money. Like, how many I don't know the history of his charity to say, but is there a ton of people who have given him $500,000 of their money? I
would be hesitant to say probably not many.
And is Conor wrong to be like, first of all, when people offer you money, when people offer you $500,000, you don't go and hold them
Hostage
over the hot coals. You know what I mean? Like you don't do that and say like you're basically holding them up now because of public opinion. And that's where it's really fucked up, where it's like, I'm gonna slander you in public, and it's the fight game, and Conor said worse to his opponent. So it's like, at the end of the day, I don't think he can really cry anything about it.
No.
But it does to me say, is that the right path to take? And I don't think I would necessarily take it. I would have continued. Like, we don't know. Even though he says, Dustin's point of view is like, I've reached out to their team, or we've reached out to their team.
My team has reached out to his team.
But we've also seen when a lot of this came to happen, Dustin and Conor talking personally to each other.
Right.
So what was to stop him from, the same way that this whole thing came to be, is there DMs? Like, because if you've already come out and said this, I'd like to see the leaked DMs where you reached out to this man.
Yeah.
Like, where you messaged Conor and were like, hey, what's going on with the money? Like, we talked about it. I'd really like to...
Man to man, so to speak.
Because, like, if he says in that, right, if we see DMs and it's like, I'd really like to get the money. I plan to, like, I have an idea for a school I want to, like, or like that I want to build over here, or like this really great thing that I could give back to Lafayette.
Like, you've got to give me a plan.
Like, even if it was just something small, like that's not like a detailed document, but it's like something to tell the public. I've already told them, like, this is what I had kind of intended on doing with the money. Then I think we could all get on board and be like, well, no, Conor needs to fucking pony up. But is Conor wrong to be like, I want to know where my $500,000 is going? And like Cormier was talking about this yesterday with Hawani, and he was saying how, you know, with his schools that he puts on for, he has his wrestling team, right? And he said one of his biggest donators, you know, for all the money he gives them, he asks for an itemized list
deduction
of where to make sure the money's going to the kids.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's nuts. And also the reason I say that these two guys need to talk to each other is because so much stuff can get lost in between.
Yeah, you're playing the plastic cup game where you're just...
I don't know if anybody hears
the sirens are going off because this shit's about to blow up right now. You know what I mean? There's a lot of issues where it's almost like he said, she said. Like you're right in saying that these guys need to kind of get face to face and have that man-to-man conversation. Like, yo, you said you were going to do this. Hey, bro, I need to know what school if you're building a school for ants, Derek Zoolander style, I need to know. Okay.
Exactly.
And I think that the unfortunate part about all this is now we get the threat, if you will, that the fight that was already scheduled for May 10th is not going to happen May 10th.
Well, because in fact, it's like, don't bite the hand that feeds you here a little bit, right? Because I'm
taking my red pennies back.
Well, so let's look at it from this point of view, though, Matt. In the long run, right? Dustin fights Conor again, and he makes another X amount of $1 million.
What, buttload?
How much of that money was already going to go to his foundation, right?
Yeah.
So did you do more damage now? That you could potentially, and I guess like he's already got the money. He could fight another. He could make the money, but you're never going to make more money than the third fight with Conor McGregor, right? You're going to make more in this one fight, Matt, than he will in like 3 fights.
I just asked the question: what was your angle? Like, what were you hoping to? Were you hoping that you'd back this man into a corner and he'd have to write you a check? Like, I just don't get what the play was.
I think there's that. You wanted to make him look bad, and also, a few different things, because I think all those things are true. I think is Poirier getting a little big for his britches? Is he feeling himself a bit off?
You're not the A side, buddy.
Right, because me and you talked about this, that like he posts this video of the knockout, and it's like, dude, you guys are 1-1.
Have you forgotten how all this came to be?
Yeah, it's like you both have knocked each other out. It's not the same. It's not even the same thing as Nate Diaz saying it, right? Because Nate Diaz is like, I could have ended your life.
Yeah,
you beat me in a decision.
Like I strangled you, bro.
Yeah,
like
this
you
is
tapped.
Like, we've both knocked each other out, and it's like Conor can just be like, I did it fucking first, buddy.
You know, the unfortunate thing about all this is that it just takes a weird turn where these guys started off in such a great place where they made this fight happen by, you know, threatening to put it on their own and making it about charity, and now you get into this weird, you know, game where Dustin, you know, is trying to gain popularity or promote this fight because they just recently signed it, but you're doing it in the worst way possible.
That's the other angle here, right? Is that what we're getting at? Is that we are using this as a promo?
But if that's the case, you're going out. This is a defamation of character. Like you're literally saying that a man who's very well known for being very charitable.
It's only a defamation if Conor literally never. Up.
I need to see the DMs.
And it's not a defamation. It's more of a like, Conor's a bad fucking dude if he says he's going to give the 500,000 and he doesn't do it.
But in his defense, again, being unbiased, based on what I've read, he has been very charitable. Maybe not in this instance, but he's known as being a very charitable person.
He's upset is like that's the type of guy. I've already proven that I can make amends for the wrongs I've done, and I've given a lot to do so.
Yeah, I just think it was a low blow on Dustin's part, and it leaves us in the air. This fight is still officially a go. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So we have a few minutes left here. We're going to get into Gastelum Whittaker. I did just think of a couple other fights while we actually talk about real MMA for 10 minutes for all of you guys.
We're stopping our WWE stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So we had Diaz versus Edwards announced. And also the one other bit of news I want to talk about real quick with you, Matt, is Aljo stepping away for surgery.
Okay. I'll start with Aljo stepping away for surgery. This is the biggest sham campaign is from a champion's point of view that I've ever seen.
Okay.
Because at this point, not only have you paraded yourself as the new champion, now you're not going to defend. Now the Petrion fight rematch that was supposed to happen, it's not going to happen. How long are you going to be out? You're going to be out for a year. So
he said he's coming back in the fall, but that seems highly unlikely.
It's very unlikely.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. I'll say that unless he's Adrian Peterson and he somehow has that gene where he can get better quickly.
I don't think we'd want him to come back that soon, like me as a consumer.
It's damaged goods, if you ask me. None of it makes sense. And now the only thing I think that is right at this point is you have to vacate. I think you have to vacate your title.
So I think we probably should have thought about vacating it from the beginning, but at least we need to have an interim title fight. We have the big matchup coming up with Dillashaw versus Sandhagen.
Yep, Corey Sandhagen.
So we have that matchup coming. Well, that's got to play somewhere into what happens, whether that be for an interim strap or if that sets up a fight with Petrion, and that's who we see go ahead and fight. But there definitely needs to be some title action happening here, and it's not like he's the actual champion, so we can pull the
right, which is why I don't want an interim belt, because we already have
a champion,
a fake paper champion at this point.
Yeah, we should enact everything should follow wrestling rules here, where it's like if you get DQ'd, you keep your belt.
You keep your belt, yeah.
Same thing with Conor. It's like if anybody falls out of the cage in MMA, keep your.
We didn't bring that up, but I'm glad you said that, because it didn't make sense to me that he can basically be in charge of his own destiny if he wants to win the title or he doesn't want to win the title. Well, right. So if you come back after getting your head kicked in or kneed in, you're at risk of losing the title.
But the reason this happened is because it was all deemed on intent, and they deemed that he did that intentional, so that's why they stripped him of the title.
Barely speaks English.
But I still think that should be stripped of the title. You shouldn't give the title to the other guy. Nope. It should be that he is stripped of the belt because he failed to defend it.
He's the first contender to fight for the vacant belt.
Exactly. The other guy didn't win it, but he lost it,
yep.
Right? We don't even have to spend a lot of time. Do you like Edwards versus Diaz?
I do because this gives Nate a huge in on the title picture, and
he lives up to the stating of I've only taken hard fights.
Yes, and to come in against Leon Edwards, who we know can be a bad guy in the octagon, this sets up Nate perfectly. But what it also does is it gives Leon Edwards someone who's going to put so much pressure on him. Hopefully, we haven't seen Nate fight, but that's Nate's style. It's a great matchup. It'll be interesting to see what Leon will do on the feet and on the ground.
Quick credit to both Conor and Nate in this regard too, and this isn't their intention, but I think it's something good that they do, is they both have taken the opportunity now to elevate other people to make money too. Yep. Cerrone never had a huge payday. It's like Conor is fighting
extended the hand.
Even you look at the Diego Sanchez thing, as fucked up of a fight if it had happened, but that's a good thing.
The Nate Diaz Jorge Masvidal.
Exactly, this is what I'm saying.
Where he got the rub.
Well, it's like Nate is lifting up people. He doesn't have to fight Leon Edwards. He could take easy fights and set himself up by getting wins. But this dude is going to come out and fight at welterweight against a top 3 guy.
But what it does for Nate though, and not that he ever has to justify his position, but now it's like, yo, I just beat the number 3 motherfucker that nobody wanted to take on. People were ducking him. I whooped his ass, and now give me whoever is going to.
He's going to take either championship.
Give it to me. Yeah. It doesn't matter who it is, and I love that about Nate. He continues to do.
Rolls the dice.
Yeah, man, it's a great story. I love it. But now we have to talk about MMA, right?
Let's get an actual prediction for an actual MMA fight. Last thing we're going to do here.
Man, I get all loosey goosey over all this Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Nate Diaz talk, but. Great fight coming up on Saturday. We get UFC on ESPN, headlined by Kelvin Gastelum and former champion Robert Whittaker at 185 pounds.
I love both of these guys. Yep. I've been a Gastelum fan longer than just about anybody.
He's one of your characters to use in the UFC game.
He is, and he also was a guy that just... I saw him on The Ultimate Fighter when he was on the John Jones Chael Sonnen season, and I saw something that I loved about the guy. He was he had smooth stand up, and he was tapping dudes out all the time. He's had mental lapses along the way.
He's low key charismatic too. Like when you see him in interviews, he does carry himself really well. I think
he's a likable guy. I think but that comes back to both of these guys are. I'm a huge Whittaker fan. He may have been my favorite middleweight. It was a bummer to see Izzy knock him out a couple of years back. I've wanted to see him get back to that point because I think he still may pose the biggest challenge to Izzy, right?
His skill set is really dynamic, and we saw that in his Yoel Romero fights. And a lot of people think that he lost.
Yeah, you saw it in the Till fight. You've seen it.
You've just seen him be so scrappy, and he just always comes with it. So it's great to see these guys. I mean, Kelvin Gastelum, any guy who's down with Taco Tuesday, I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
I'm not down with LeBron James, so
okay, so I renege on that. So I am not down with LeBron James, but I am down with Kelvin Gastelum being down with Taco Tuesday. But this is a fight. It is difficult for me to pick it because I genuinely enjoy, like yourself, I genuinely enjoy both these guys. Both these guys had great fights at 170 pounds. When you think about their matchups, and then they both kind of reinvented themselves when they got to 185.
This is going to be a really tough one because Gastelum has the power in the technique to knock out Whittaker. I think overall Whittaker is the smarter, more
I almost hesitate
crafty striker.
I almost hesitate to say that he may have a quickness advantage against Calvin.
They're both welterweights coming up.
No. So I 100% get that, but Calvin is very, how would I say? He
jumps from the outside and kind of.
He's very boxy in his striking. You know what I mean?
He leaps into his punches.
Robert Whittaker does an amazing job of being fluid. When we talk about angles in boxing, angles in UFC is extreme in MMA. I'm sorry, is extremely important, and few do it better than Robert Whittaker. So I think this is a very good matchup. I'm gonna give you first dibs on making a pick because I'm still on the fence on this one.
As much as it's going to pain me to say this, and I was prepared when we first started this little prediction here to go with Kelvin Gastelum just because that's what my heart wants to say.
Sure.
However, I am going to go with Robert Whittaker. I think because of the craftiness in his striking, and to your point, the ability that where you can catch Kelvin in between, if you can catch him jumping in, and I think that Whittaker is a talented enough guy to do that. They're both really well-rounded. So no matter where this goes, it's going to be an exciting, well-matched-up fight. But I'm going to go with Whittaker because I think that he's the cream of the crop at that weight class.
So I kind of cheated a little bit and I looked at the records. While I initially wanted to go with Calvin in this, I do think that when we're talking about Robert Whittaker, his skill set, the man has only lost to Israel Adesanya. Mm-hmm. It's been,
but the people that Kelvin's losing to are very
so
talented.
we've got good names: Jack Hermanson, Darren Till, close fight, and then he also loses to Israel Adesanya.
Nobody's had a better fight with that Izzy than Kelvin.
No slouch. But I wonder, are they at a point right now where Whittaker is just that next level, that championship level where he's been in there with some bigger guys? Mm-hmm. And Kelvin coming in being, I think, the smaller guy in this, it gets really interesting. I'm going to go Robert Whittaker as well. As much as I didn't want to, love my buddy Kelvin, but I think Robert Whittaker's skill set overcomes.
I'm glad to see we're on the same page. It's not as controversial as our Ben Askren, Jake Paul predictions.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be very few things as controversial as Ben Askren and Jake Paul nowadays. You slap a guy in the gut. That's something I would do to you. Hey, bitch, what's up?
Little belly rub.
Yeah, come here, buddy. We're gonna make some money together. It's just really weird. You might as well just make a porn.
Dr. Evil or something.
Did I do that?
That was a weird one. Yeah,
I didn't realize that. I mean, we were talking about Austin Powers earlier, so maybe it's only right.
What's your favorite movie trilogy?
Are we gonna do that?
No, I'm not talking to you. I was talking about.
No, I know, but I mean, are we even gonna throw that question out there to them?
If you hear it and you have an answer,
guys,
let us know.
favorite movie trilogy. I mean, we're not even talking entertainment. We're doing MMA right now.
Yeah, whoops, wrong show.
Stick to it, dude.
Check out our other episode that we're going to come out with this week for those with Good Taste Weekly. We drop that one every week, generally on Saturday. It may be a little early this week.
A little bit of a flip-flop schedule.
Yeah, it's going to be a little all over the place. But if you haven't checked that one out yet, flip over to that. I'm sure the link's somewhere. Also, like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit us where, Matt?
At For Those With Good Taste on Instagram and at Good Taste Live on Twitter.
And also at the chat down below.
Yeah, you need to hit us in the chat. If you don't hit us in the chat maybe doesn't even exist.
I heard if you don't hit us in the chat hits back.
I'm going to hit somebody in the chat.
Whoa, motherfucker.
It might be myself. But hopefully you guys are there with us. We appreciate you guys for hanging out this long. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.
I'm going to steal Michael Rappaport's thing because he's canceled. You fucks you. You go ahead and hit the likes down below. You fucks you.
That's not a Michael Rappaport thing. That's a New York thing, and I'm 100% okay with you doing it, dude. Nice, hit your fucking likes, kid.
Yeah,
go get your coffee and walk your fucking dogs.
As Alicia Keys said, I'm from New York.
I thought you were going to say no one. Yeah, anyway, we're all from New York. Go Mets. Go Knicks. Go Yankees.
Yuck.
Go everybody.
This is gross.
Everybody except for these Boston teams. Fuck out of here, kid.
Congrats, Julian Edelman, on your retirement. We're out.
Oh,
see you later.
12 good seasons. We're out. Love you, buddy.
Peace.
Fuck out of here, kid.
You fuck you.
Fuck you, guy. Fucking cocksucker.
For those with good taste.